Hello, host Eric here, host of Talking with Famous People. And today I want to talk to you about a few different ways. I'm going to go with 5 or 6 to start out with, in which you can be more fancy. Now, a lot of us go through life and naturally we're going to aspire to something more elegant, something more sophisticated than our natural state of being. In other words, we see around us other people who are more fancy than we are, and we think, I want to be fancy like that guy. So how can we be more fancy though if we're not naturally fancy? Well, let's start with number 5. Number 5, a good way to be more fancy. Use the words winter and summer as verbs, okay? So don't say, oh, it's a cold winter, or, well, it looks like winter's coming on. You say, I guess soon I'll be wintering in Burbank. I winter in Burbank. I summer in La Crescenta and I winter in Burbank. Okay? If you use that as a verb, people will say, now that guy's fancy. Okay. That second way that you can really improve your fanciness, you want to make your food as dangerous as possible. So, if there is something that we as a species have done to protect human beings from eating food that might be harmful to us, get rid of those processes. So basically, you need to reduce the number of steps between farm and table to as close to 0 as possible. So ideally, you're eating the cow in the field while it's walking around still. Okay? Obviously, only organic cows, and obviously you're only going to eat grass-fed cows. If a cow has been fed grain, that's for ordinary people, not for fancy people. Okay? So you don't want to make that mistake. Now, let's talk about the next way that you can be fancy. So, one thing that fancy people do that regular people just aren't capable of is they put on a different version of the ordinary thing, or whatever it is. So for example, like, let's say you're a female. You might want to put on some makeup. Maybe you want to put on what sometimes people refer to as blush, which is this red stuff you put on your cheeks to make them red. Except fancy people don't use blush. You know what fancy people use? Rouge. So when you go to put on your blush, next time, if you want to be fancier, you say, I am applying rouge to my cheeks. And then you will be considerably fancier. You might want to write the word rouge on your cheeks so that people know. Because if other people can't tell, then there's no point in it, right? Okay, now, let's talk about a 4th way that you can be fancy. Now this way, we're talking about sports. There are certain sports that are fancy, and there are certain sports that are not fancy. And you want to stick to only the fancy sports, okay? So, if you want to try like a ground level, introductory level of fanciness, then you can go ahead and try gymnastics. Gymnastics is reasonably fancy, but, it's a good starter fancy. It's an excellent starter fancy, and if you want to start with something that's fancy and not particularly challenging, and doesn't actually require you to have any skills or anything, then try rhythmic gymnastics. Basically, what you do is you sashay around with a streamer kind of. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's actually very, very fancy. Now, we talked about different ways you can speak. We talked about another sport that you can do. We talked about a way that you can take something that you normally do and make it more fancy by referring to it by a fancier name. Now, lastly, what I want to talk about is your behavior, the way you carry yourself, your body and stuff in space. That's going to help round out the fanciness. So, first of all, the fanciest people are always wearing uncomfortable clothes. So you want to make sure that you put on the least comfortable clothes you can possibly find. Ideally, what you have is a suit of clothes that are made out of something like porcupine quills. And then you'll have jagged, rusting, stabbing, sharp-edged pieces of metal all inside the clothes. So as you're walking, now keep in mind, if you really want to pull off fanciness though, you can give no indication of how thoroughly uncomfortable this is. You need to walk around in abject agony at all times, but convey not a spectrum. That is the fanciest thing you can possibly do. So, again, folks, I applaud your interest and your willingness to seek out advice and to seek out tips and suggestions on how to be more fancy. I applaud your enthusiasm towards maximizing your own fanciness. It's something each of us aspires to, and not all of us ever really get around to it in life. But when those of us who do, we are the ones who, when we are feeling our fanciest, we say, damn, I'm so fancy. And then we finally understand everything. So, thanks for watching Talking with Famous People, and I'll see you later.